Hey guys, this is Myleik. This is the My Taught You podcast, and I am back with an interview today. I know I have left you guys hanging with those, but I know you are going to love this podcast. Today we have best-selling novelist and beauty writer Tia Williams. Tia,
Hi.
welcome, welcome, and thank you for joining. Before we get into what you've done and what you do,
Mhm.
I don't know if you know this, but you were the one person responsible for my quote unquote PR piece that ran on Curlbox years ago. Do you remember that? You like broke the story.
Well, I was obsessed with you. I mean, it was just
Really?
yes, girl, it was such a revolutionary idea. I was all over it.
Yeah. So I reached out to you and I'm like, Tia, I have this incredible idea. This is my press release for it. I'm giving you the news. And
Mhm.
that night, I think you ran it and we had 1,000 people sign up on our website at midnight. Like
Are you
type in
serious?
I'm serious. We had 1,000 people type in their email addresses at midnight for this business. So
I
I
never
always
knew that.
Yes, I'm sorry. I think because once the business started, it was such a whirlwind. Like
Right.
I was like struggling to keep my head above water. But yes, so you launched it on essence.com
Wow.
and 1,000 people signed up that night. And when I tell you, I used to get sort of like the email notifications to my Blackberry at the time,
Mhm.
and they were coming in nonstop. I had to just eventually turn it off because it was 1,000 the first night, 2,000 the next night. And I mean, we've gotten into
What?
Yes, we have six figures of people still signing up for our email list since that day 5 years ago.
That is incredible. I mean, I can believe it, but I that's just huge. Like the first night? God.
Yeah, yeah. So I owe you so much for that. It was small, but it was powerful, powerful. So today I would like to publicly thank you for giving me my first bit of press on a faux business because you know it wasn't even real then.
Faux business. It was not
it was
faux.
it was like it was aspirational, and I said to myself, somebody tweeted me yesterday and they said, if you have a business idea, how do you sort of source it without giving it away? And I
Mm.
pretty much said my strategy was to put it out there, and if people bite, keep going, and if they don't, let it go.
Right. That's
So
brilliant. Yeah.
yeah, so that is what I did. Alrighty, so you are the goddess of
Oh,
beauty,
girl.
specifically brown beauty. You know you are.
Well,
Um, yes,
I mean,
Tia.
I've been around for a minute. For a
Yeah,
minute.
yes, and I'm going to date us both during this interview. But you moved to New York City to take your first job at YM, right?
Yes. Yeah,
Many,
1997.
okay, many listening to this probably have never heard of that magazine. Can you tell us how you got from the University of Virginia to New York? Like, how I think so many people wonder how did you do that?
Right. Well, I okay, I've been a writer my entire life.
Okay.
I've been a fiction writer since I was 7. I was
7?
yes, I was very socially awkward at school, and I would come home every day and I would rewrite the day in my favor.
Oh,
So,
that's
like
amazing. I need to
so
do that.
yeah, I would, like, make myself the heroine of the situations that were a complete fail at school. So it
Okay.
was like my first, like I was amazing in a conversation that I was embarrassing in. So I've been writing fiction forever. And, I was on the newspaper staff and all of that. And at UVA, I was too. And I always wrote poetry. But then at the same time, I was always obsessed with beauty, obsessed, like fashion magazines galore. I kept them all in my parents' garage. I still have like boxes upon boxes of
Really?
like Vogues and Bazaar and 17 from like the 80s till 93 when I left for college. And so I always was very, very clear. The second I graduate, I'm moving to New York and I'm going to figure out how to be a beauty editor because
Okay.
it marries like my love for beauty and writing. And then I'm also going to be a novelist. I'm going to wait a second to figure out the novelist piece because I need to get some experience. So I
Okay.
knew that I felt that I had like sort of a basic suburban experience growing up. And like I needed to like learn some things about life in New York before I tried to write anything compelling.
Okay.
So yeah, like after UVA, I moved to New York, and NYU. I don't know if they still have it, but back then they had a postgraduate summer intensive course on publishing, and half of the summer was book publishing and the other half was magazine publishing. And they had real people from the industry come and teach the workshops. And so it was also like this massive networking opportunity. And by the end, this is such a 1997 story, but by the end of the summer, we all had jobs.
Right. That's such a 1997 story. That is not a 2017 story.
At all. Like, it just doesn't even exist anymore. Like, it was fine.
No.
We literally twirled out of the program, like, with our jobs. Our little $19,000, dollars a year jobs. But yeah, so I started working in editorial at YM as a beauty assistant. And I just sort of, and back then I was literally the only Black beauty editor in the industry. There was no, outside of the, women at Ebony and Essence. So,
and how was that? I mean, I think most of us have watched like Devil Wears Prada. You know, how was that being like the only Black woman in that space?
Well, it's kind of intense. I have to say that my, growing up sort of prepared me for it because I went to very, very white schools and I was accustomed to how to navigate being the only, in the room. And my sort of, the way I approached it was, you obviously have to know it, your boss's job, your job, everybody's job to get in. Like, to prove that you even belong there, you have to be so stellar. So, girl, when I was interviewing for that little position, I did all the research. And obviously this is before, the internet was like, nothing.
You couldn't find things.
You couldn't find things.
So that's what bums me out when people come so unprepared for interviews. I'm like,
it's like, how?
Right. You can find out anything. You can find out what I ate last night for dinner.
Seriously.
Who served me?
Yeah, you know what my daughter wore last Tuesday. Like,
right.
So I went to Dwayne Reed and I went, the beauty section, and I went to the Saks beauty section, and I just studied. I asked the women that work there for, what their favorite beauty products were and why. Like, I killed that editorial test. Like, I had no choice.
Right.
And, I really, really, really did the work. But, once you get in those doors and you're like faced with, well, I think the only way a Black model will work here is if she's very ethnically ambiguous. She cannot really have actually Negroid features. That's a quote I heard. And having to fight till your hair sweats out to get a brown foundation on a foundation roundup for spring 1999. Like, it's just kind of a shock, but you have to learn very quickly that you cannot get angry.
Okay.
That won't get you anywhere. Nope. And you can't, get on a podium and make some sort of woke ass speech. Nobody cares. What you do is be quiet and absorb everything you can and very, stealthily go about the business of revolutionizing things.
Right.
Little by little, you do it in a way that they don't even realize who they is. They don't even realize that you're doing it. So
right.
That's kind of what I did.
What just happened to them?
Yeah, and like, how did Iman end up on this page? Yes, exactly.
Right. And now it's all the wage. So after making waves with an impressive career in editorial, do you want to just run down the magazines you worked at? Just because I think you should.
Yeah. Yeah, I went from YM to Elle to Glamour to Lucky, and then I was beauty director at Teen People, and then I had sort of like this existential crisis. I was dating this really sexy psychopath, and I was just, who has it? I was just having like some troubles, and I was like, I got to get the hell out of New York. Like, this is just a little much. And I put all my shit in storage and I quit my job, much to the chagrin of everyone I knew. Like, how could you? You're literally the only Black chick in beauty. Like, how could you do this?
How could you?
But, and I went to Seville and taught English randomly for 6 months. Wow. And while I was there, I did what I did in elementary school and junior high and high school. I took this insane relationship with this like hot sociopath poet, and I rewrote it and made it magical. And and that was The Accidental Diva. And I came back home and I got a 2-book deal. And so I was out of
Wow.
editorial for a while and, just writing novels. I wrote a YA series called The It Chicks. I ghost wrote Iman's beauty book.
Oh my goodness.
I did a lot. And I started one of the first beauty blogs in 2004 called Shake Your Beauty. So I did that for a while and then I got divorced and I was like, oh, I need to go get like a regular salary so I can afford me and this baby's lives.
Right.
So I went back to editorial and went to Essence.com as beauty director.
Uh-huh.
And now I'm the copy director at Bumble and Bumble, which is a hair care brand owned by Estee Lauder. So I've
And
been,
Estee is just amazing.
yeah, beauty
Yeah.
writing for
Wow.
20 years.
For 20 years. So before I get into the perfect find, which I want to talk about,
Uh-huh.
I noticed you said that you started a beauty blog in 2004, and a lot of people write me and ask, "Is it too late to start a blog?" What are your thoughts on that and just like blogging in general today?
Well, I mean, honestly, it's like it is night and day. I mean, 2004 there was no social media. Like there was no way to promote yourself if you were right. It was just an organic
Mm-hmm.
expression. I didn't know shit about
Right.
anything. Like digital, I had no idea. All I knew was that I had just left um magazines, but I still love to be, an author, but I still love beauty so much. I wasn't ready to like let go of that voice and just like talking about mascara and blush. And so my literary agent was like, there's this thing called a blog where you can just literally get on and like post your musings on whatever you want. And I was like, I love it. And so she set me up on Blogspot and I just sort
Oh
of, I didn't
yeah.
even have any images. Like I just wrote these little essays and it caught on in this like profoundly organic way. You couldn't go on
Hmm.
Twitter or Instagram or wherever and be like, "Hey, read my latest post, here's a link." It was just if
Right.
people found you, they found you.
Right.
And so that was the business then, which was hardly even a business. No one even knew how to monetize it yet. It was just like, something you did because you loved it.
Right. Right.
Now it is multi-million dollars. I'm an influencer. And if you want me to talk
Mhm.
about your brand, like it's thousands.
Break me
It's,
off something.
yeah, like I'm not talking for free.
Right.
That was very Drake. It's being uh involved every second of the day, like SEO and
Yes.
um, you know, clickable headlines and posting certain things at certain times of a day and brand
Right.
partnerships and it's a for real business. And
Yes.
part of the reason I got out of it is because that's not my skill set in by any stretch of the imagination. I can't
Okay.
keep up with technology. I'm not really good at promoting myself in that way. And I'm just not techie. I'm just a writer. I was just writing this blog. I didn't know how to turn it into um, the thing that some of my friends that who are so amazing at the digital space were able to do. So I politely bowed out because it became something that I no longer knew how to be good at.
Oh, that's knowing when to quit, which I
Yeah.
think, seeing people hang on almost like Stevie Wonder and those little like braids in the back. Like,
Oh
girl,
God.
just let it go.
Oh, those two strands. It's
Right.
so disappointing.
It is. It is. Okay, so I have to be honest. I have not finished The Perfect Find because I don't want it to end.
You're so
I have
funny.
it sitting here. I am on page 292. One page past chapter 26, and I have held it here since last year.
That's hilarious.
I
It's such a
don't.
compliment, by the way. I don't even want you to finish it because I
Yeah, I'm
love
like,
that.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, I do not want to know how this book ends, mainly because I don't want it to, but I know I'm gonna have to do it soon.
That's
But this
funny.
was so, Tia, I am not a sort of fiction girl. I think if you follow
Mhm.
me, I read a bunch
Yeah, I
of
know.
business, self-help, and I bought a bunch of yearbooks for all the girls in my office because, that's what we have to do for each other.
I love that.
And so I had it and I was like, oh, I'll get around and read it. And I always feel like I think reading fiction for me is just this guilt of like I'm wasting time, like I can't do that.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know what it's about, but I had Lovey on the podcast
Hmm.
some like last year, and she was like, I turned off my computer and my phone and I just read like 2 books this weekend, and she was saying one was The Perfect Find by Tia Williams, and I'm like, girl, do you know that's just I think I got 2 copies sitting on my bookshelf right now. And
Yeah.
she's like, Mike, I'm telling you, like, you're not going to be able to put it down. So I'm like, really? And I opened it up and she was not lying. And I'm like, I read this story and I'm like, oh, Tia. I'm like, oh, Tia. How much of this book is there a percentage that like is reality? Like you said, did you rewrite anything in your life in this book?
Oh, girl. It's my diary.
I know. I was like, Tia, I remember you telling me this story the first time I met you, and I'm like, oh my God. But this
Yeah.
sounds much better than when you told me about it.
Well, yeah. So this is what happened. So The Perfect Find is a novel I wrote last year, and
Mhm.
it's about this woman Jenna who was a big fashion editor star, like in from fashion magazines, and she has a complete nervous breakdown. She gets laid off. Her fiance dumps her. Everything goes wrong. She loses her money, and then she stages a comeback at a street style site, and she doesn't know anything about digital. She doesn't even have Facebook. She's totally in over her head. Everybody's a millennial. She's 40 whatever, and she's also working for her enemy from the 90s. That's her boss. And then she ends up
Mhm.
falling in love with a coworker who's half her age. Very steamy, sexy, hot love, secret love,
And Eric
for a
sounds
variety of
fine.
reasons.
Everything about him, I don't even know. And I mean, this is probably just what you learn as a writer, but you wrote him sexy as hell. Like, if you were casting him, if this is a movie, who would you cast Eric
Oh,
as?
in my head the whole time was Michael B. Jordan.
Ah, yes.
I just
Yes.
thought like, oh, you know what the key is for like writing a hot man in fiction is you have to fall in love with him first. And so then
Okay.
you write about him through the lens of like your insane lust for him, which is really meta and sort of disturbed to like fall in love
Mhm.
with somebody that came out of your head, but
But you have to do
you
that.
have to do it. So yeah, so I wrote this book because I wrote it for me because I was having a really horrible moment in my life where I literally thought I was over. In 2012, I got laid off and had to sell the apartment that I
No.
bought in Brooklyn with the advance from my first novel, The Accidental Diva, which is the thing I was the most proud of in the world. I had to
Wow.
move to the worst block in Brooklyn with my baby.
No.
And then I've had migraines, really debilitating migraines my whole life. And they got, you know, insane. And I was in and out of the hospital for 3 years. Like,
Wow.
my family and Adam, Lena's dad, and his
Mhm.
family literally was raising Lena while I was on hospital beds. And I couldn't work even if I wanted to because I was so sick. So I would take these like, I was on unemployment, taking these like embarrassing $250 writing gigs, because it was
Mhm.
all I could manage. And for someone that had so much early success, for a type A perfection addict like me, like failing this way in front of the world, in front of my family, in front of my child was just soul crushing. I thought it was done. Like
Mhm.
I thought it was done. I was 90 pounds. My skin was green from all the toxic stuff they were pumping into my veins in the
No.
hospital. And so I sat on a hospital bed and I was like, you know what I need to do is do what I've always done and write my way out of this fuckery. And
Mhm.
I invented this sort of like alter ego that was me, who was also going through an insane time and figured out how to come back stronger and more powerful than ever. And my hope was that the words would help manifest it into my
Mm.
life.
Mhm.
And it did, literally, this is crazy, but a week after I turned in my book, I got the copy director job at Bumble and Bumble. And
That's
I
crazy.
moved back to my neighborhood that I lived in before,
Right.
and not owning though, renting, but still.
But still.
And, I kind of turned everything around. And then, this past year, the book was really successful. So, yeah, it kind of was I wrote it to save myself, and
Wow.
people ended up enjoying it.
It's really an amazing book. You answered. I had a couple questions like, did you ever feel like you made the wrong decision when magazines started to fold? Like, I I have some friends who are writers, and that it's like, did you ever feel like, geez, I wish I would have done something else or gone into something else?
Well, I was one of those die-hard print people that
Hmm.
refused to even see the signs. I was like, "No, no,
Wow.
no, this can't really happen." It's like the
Like the music industry, the Titanic, they're just
yeah,
staying on it. Like
girl.
people are burning music and sharing files. Like you still trying to sell CDs. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like and I always compare it to like Hollywood at the end of the 20s when it went from silent films to what they call talkies, which was movies
Mhm.
that had sound. And
Right.
the silent movie stars were still like trying to make their little movies and no one cared.
Right.
And a lot of them ended up like throwing themselves in the Pacific because they just couldn't deal with like, the changing tide of the industry. And so it was really, really hard. I still believe so much in print, but what I know intellectually that it matters very little now,
Hmm.
but my heart still loves it so much. So it was really hard for me to accept the digital thing. And in fact, when I went to essence.com as um, their beauty director, is my first digital job. It was 2009, and I did not know what the hell was going on. I was
Right.
still trying to write like 1,000-word pieces, and I was like, "Well, where's the budget for this photo shoot? We don't have a budget."
Right.
I was so confused.
Right. What are we doing here?
What is even happening? Like this just
Right.
feel why is this due in an hour? Like I have 3 months before I turn something. I don't get it. So it was definitely a learning curve, but what digital has done like for the beauty industry for women of color is just, I mean, it's like fucking revolutionary. Like when
Yeah.
I came into the industry, there was a finite number of magazines with a
Hmm.
finite number of beauty positions. And they were highly coveted. It was hard to get in if you were white. You didn't get in if you were black.
Right.
And what blogging and then vlogging and then social media and all of the and digital zines and all these online outlets, like what that has done is given an opportunity for Black women and all women of color to have a voice and carve out a space. And now there's like, there's a for real Black beauty mafia out here,
Big time.
which I never, ever thought would happen in 1997.
Oh, I'm certain. So now, after having gone through all of that, Tia, what do you feel like you need to do to stay relevant now? Like, what are things that you do, or does it even matter? Like,
You know what's funny? And I feel very like old man, I feel like my grandfather saying this, but I don't have anything to prove anymore. I am
mm,
41 years old. I have been doing this beauty thing for 2 decades. I've done everything you can do in
mm-hmm,
beauty: editor, blogger, digital editor, all of it. Um, and I feel like it's sort of this great feeling of coasting at
yeah,
this point. And all my main goal is just tickling myself, which is so liberating. I could literally burst into like Sunday morning tears with you right now over that, because my whole career was spent being so like profoundly ambitious.
mm-hmm,
Everything that I did wasn't enough. It was never enough. Like I remember 2004, the year my first novel came out, The Accidental Diva, and I had this book party, and Boy George was the DJ, and Iman hosted, and there was it was like really fancy, and I didn't feel any of it. I was throwing up in the bathroom the whole time
no,
because I was worried about a typo on page like 114, and I didn't think I
no,
was good enough for any of this. And I was already thinking about the next book I had to write to fulfill my 2-book deal. And my shoes were wrong, and I was wrong, and I wasn't pretty enough for anyone to take pictures of me that night. Like it was just, it was so dumb. And that's how I was my entire 20s and most of my
mm-hmm,
30s. It was never enough. And I don't know, like you get to this post 40 moment and you're like, you know what? It's fine. If you don't like it, I don't know you. And if you love it, that's great too. But the most important thing is that you make yourself happy.
right.
So I'm working on my next novel now,
Oh,
and every time those sort of ideas creep, those thoughts creep in, like what if people hate it? What if you can't do it again? What if it's not funny? What if you forgot how to write a sex scene? What I just drown it all out, and I'm like, you know what? Just make yourself happy here,
yeah,
and
right.
maybe you'll make someone else happy.
Right. Do it for you and hopefully they like it. I always say that when we are authentically ourselves, we give others permission to do the same, right?
Exactly.
Like, wow, she did that. I love that. So that's awesome. And I wrote some notes because I think I have the title of this podcast in that, which is amazing.
Oh,
Yes, yes, yes. One thing that I've seen you talk about, and you brought it up, and I had this question was about your migraines.
ugh.
And I had never, I mean, I've heard people use the word, and I think one day you tagged like some sort of like migraine Instagram site or hashtag or something. And I started
Hmm.
going and reading about how people are like really suffering and like I think it was something like things that people who get migraines don't want to hear, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like and I know that you still I wondered like how this in overall has impacted your life and what should people who are like on the outside and naive really know about people who suffer from like these intense migraines?
Yeah. Well, a migraine isn't just a headache. Like it is.
Okay, right. And I
sev-
think that that's what I can be guilty and say.
Yeah. Like, and if you don't know, there's no reason you would know, but it's completely, it's just debilitating. The pain is unfathomable. And I have a migraine every day, and it can go
Mhm.
from manageable to, um, fetal
Every
position,
day?
hospital bed. Yeah. Every single day.
Ugh.
Um, and what's so it's like having a demon sit on your head and like rapidly like stab your temples with ginsu knives. Like it is just and the thing that people don't understand, because you look normal,
Mhm.
is that you're like standing in front of them like bleeding out your eyes invisibly. You feel like you're
Mhm.
dying in a crowd. And um, what I have to go through to have a normal day like everyone else is kind of mind-boggling. Like I on purpose wake up earlier than I need to because I know I'm going to wake up in terrible pain. And like waking up hurting ruins you,
Mhm.
because that's the first thing that you experience in the day is pain, is agony. So I
Right,
have to wake
right.
up early to take the pills and lay with the ice pack and do all of that so that I have I can get things under control, so I can wake up my daughter and get her to school and then
Mhm.
go to work and work.
Mhm.
But normal things are very, very hard if you're in chronic pain. When every breath hurts, it's hard to walk to the train. When
Right.
your brain is exploding, it's hard to focus to write. It's hard to focus
Oh,
to maintain relationships. You are not reliable. I can make
right.
plans with people, but in the 11th hour, I might have to bow out because I can't get out of bed. I can't get off my kitchen floor.
Right.
Um,
Oh.
Being a mother with migraines is particularly devastating because you can't help but hide this from your baby, and your baby grows up worrying about you in a way that a child shouldn't have to worry about their adult caretaker.
Right.
If she sees me rubbing my temples, oh my God, okay, do you have your pill? Do I need to get you an ice pack? She's
Right. She's
8,
on she's oh wow.
and it's devastating. So
Mhm.
it's very hard to date because, I'm on a date with you and my eyes are crossing. Well, I don't know what the fuck you just said. I need to go home. Like it just everything hurts.
Right, right.
So not to be complainy about it, but that's the truth of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you can come off looking kind of messy and airheady, which I definitely do.
Right.
Seem like a ditz and a spaz a lot of the times, but it's because either I'm, in agony, or I've taken so many pills, I'm standing in front of you completely high.
Right. Just right. What'd you
So
say? What did you say
what?
again?
And like your nose is melting off your face. Like I don't even see you right now. So, yeah, it's a
Wow.
struggle, but you know
Yeah.
what? And this is really like masochistic and weird, or maybe it's
Mhm.
just like my coping mechanism.
Mhm.
I, as much as I hate it, and it's been pain is my universe, and it's been unfortunately like the defining experience of my life to have to live with this. It also gives me something to rail against. It gives me something to fight against. Like
Oh
fuck this
wow.
shit. I'm going to be amazing anyway.
Right. Right.
Like despite this, I'm going to kill. And it gives me like this fire under my ass because you really have two choices. Like ignore it and defeat it and become your best self anyway, or
Mhm.
just die.
Right. And
So,
you're
you
not,
know.
and yeah, the other's not an option. So, are there any things that you have done that you find that work for you? That like you have a better day if, or is that not a thing?
No, it's not a thing.
Dang.
Unfortunately, it's not a thing. And it's like all
Yeah.
wrapped up in the barometric pressure. Like if it's a crazy rainy day or if it goes from warm to cold or hot to, whatever.
Oh.
And New York is a mess,
Mm-hmm.
weather wise. And all my doctors like, you need to move to Santa Fe. And I'm like, yeah, I'll move to Santa Fe. And do
I
what
love
though?
Santa Fe. Come on.
I
Have you been?
live. I love it. But like, what would I do? Like, I feel like I would just sort of lay around on somebody's patio and read Stephen King novels. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not
that sounds like a
sure.
good life. I mean,
The thing about New
listen,
York is that it makes you get up and do shit. Like, you have
right,
to. Like, everybody's so,
right.
on the go and
Moving.
trying to moving. So,
Yeah, I went to Santa Fe for the first time. I don't know why. It was like, I want to go to Santa Fe. So I went last year and the food's delicious. I love the architecture. I
oh,
just
me
love it there.
too.
Yeah. Well, if you ever move there, I may be there part time. So
Love it.
we could start something,
We could have
start
a
something in Santa
commune.
Fe.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So so you said you were dating, so single mother, I'm guessing. I don't even know if I like saying that, but people write me often and say, you have all these different women you interview men and women, but you've never had like a mom who's has a career and who's doing it. So how do you balance it all?
Girl, I don't know. I don't know. I balance it because I have to. Like, I am the most unhealthy. Like, I just get through the day. And it's
Okay.
terrible. And I feel so irresponsible saying this, but it's like, sometimes we don't eat that good. And, sometimes I
Mhm.
don't sleep. I forgot to drink water last week. I just
Oh,
drank root
right.
beer. Things are not great when it comes to like work life balance. For
Right.
me, it's sort of like put your head down and knock it all out. And I wish I was different. And I wish I had the time to figure out how to live that super healthy, mindful existence.
Mhm.
But honestly, at the end of the day, if Lena is fed and smiling and I am still on my feet somehow and my bangs look good and I met my deadlines,
Right.
I'm kind of okay.
Right. And she seems to be doing well. She's got so much personality. I love seeing her on social media
Yeah, she is a whole lot of woman.
at
A
8 years
whole
old.
lot at 8 years old.
At
It's
8 years old.
so
Okay,
funny.
so what kind of goals do you set after accomplishing so much, Tia? Like, how do what do you say you want to do?
Well, I want one of my books to be made into a movie.
Ooh, it's a good one.
I badly. I want this seems silly, but I need to own real estate again. It's very hard in New York to
Mhm.
get those coins together.
Yeah.
Um, but I really want that. I want to finish another novel. And it's odd, this would be my fifth novel, my sixth book, and it would seem that because I've done it several times before, it's like, "Oh, girl, we'll just do it. Like, this is what you
Mhm.
do, so just do it." But every single time, it feels like this will be the moment that everyone will figure out that I'm a fraud,
Oh,
or this will be the moment that your talent escapes you, or like your muse, hops in someone else's head and then you're left empty. Every single time is really scary.
mhm.
So that's a big goal, finishing my novel this year. And every time you write, you want to beat yourself a little bit and make it better than the last one, the last time. So um, it's a personal sort of pressure you put on yourself that really doesn't come from anybody but you.
I get it.
Um, and I want more than anything for Lena to grow up completely self-possessed and loving who she is and being intellectually curious and secure in her sort of decisions and choices.
Mhm. Yeah.
I want her to be a little boss. And so everything I do with the self-awareness that there's a kid in here watching.
Mm.
You just have to make sure that you are modeling what you want your baby to be.
Yeah. And
So,
it's got to be tough when they're watching. It's like the silly decisions that we made when no one was looking, and they see
mhm.
everything. They
Oh
notice.
God.
Ugh, right.
All of it. Like even just being so careful of your language. Like
Mm.
Um, my favorite thing is to be like, I have no hair density, and I like say it out loud. Like, why is my hair so thin? Like, I don't understand. And then Lena, I hear her
Mhm.
playing in her room, who has the most robust hair, the most like
Yes.
her edges flourish. Like I can't. And I heard her playing with her dolls, and she was like, "My hair is too thin. What am I going to do about my thin hair? Like, I need to get. I need. Is there a deep conditioner for this?" And I was like, "Oh my god, what am I implanting into this baby's head?"
Yes. It's crazy how that works. And
Mhm.
sometimes to see that manifest itself in adults, like, I think a lot of us walking around are kind of like that, and just not knowing the impact of something so simple. Like you said, her hair is fully like she's got way more hair than is
I
needed
mean,
by
than is
anyone.
even necessary. Like it's
Yeah.
just and you don't realize how like we self-deprecate all day long. Like when someone gives
All
you a
day.
compliment, what do you say? "Oh, girl,
Oh,
no, but
no.
thank you, I guess, but no."
Right, right, right.
Like we can't even everyone I know does that. And it's
Yeah.
whether or not you have a baby in the house or not, it's just you don't want your soul to hear yourself, making these disparaging comments about your appearance or anything else about you. Like you
Yeah.
internalize that stuff.
I agree. That's why I'm always like, be kind to yourself. I found that like in my whole, I've never had like much of a like weight issue, but I found
Mhm.
that the times that I was overweight, it was when I was like obsessing and like not saying nice things about myself. And once
Yeah.
I started to like, when people would say, "Oh, you look good, like you've lost weight or you gained weight," like I've always been very mindful to like say something to the person when they say that because it's like I'm not trying to lose weight. I'm not trying, and when people are like, "You've picked up weight," it's like that's the rudest shit ever. You know what I mean? Like
Oh.
it's like you just like don't say anything. And so I always kind of like set that boundary with people that like making comments about like my weight is not talk about this outfit, talk about this
Please.
bob, and talk about this curly
Yes.
wig, but do not talk about my body because it took a lot of work for me to get to a place where like if I'm not working out and I've got a little bulge, it's like whatever. And I just say to myself, Malik, you know that you were drinking wine and not working out. That's what happens. You don't want it,
Right.
then you do something about it. But don't.
Mhm.
It's like you really got to put that wall up with people with the comments. Like
Yeah.
no. And you can always see people's face because they're not used to being given that boundary. But it's like, oh no, I don't like discuss my body. Like I don't discuss my body or allow comments. And people are just
Yeah,
like,
we're
no,
not doing this.
not
Mm-mm.
today. It's like moving on. All right. So because I have a lot of millennials that listen to my podcast, if someone wanted a job in the beauty industry today, what are, let's just say, 3 things you think they can do to make themselves stand out?
Like as a writer,
As a
as
writer,
a editor or
yes.
a blogger or okay. I think okay, so I love that there's so many opportunities and so many outlets to, uh be a beauty writer these days.
Mhm.
But the flip side of that is that there's so many outlets. Like it's a little the market is a little saturated.
Mhm.
So I think if you're fresh out the gate today, and you want to make some sort of beauty presence, you've got to figure out what you have that's different than everybody else.
Mhm.
Um, because I don't know that the world needs another beauty blog like reviewing products. I don't. I
Right.
think that the innovation right now is super, super important. Like, Curlbox is like that was at the forefront of this thing and it was an amazing idea. Like and that's why it took off.
Thank you.
Um I you have to not copy, you
Mm.
know?
Mhm.
It has got got to be fresh and new and innovative, or else it's just not gonna resonate because
Right.
there's so much.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Figure out what makes you figure out what your signature is. Even the way you sort of have evolved into this sort of like business prophet, like, which honestly I feel like you need to print on business cards, like my league business prophet. It's that was unexpected, that wasn't what you started off being, but that, really spoke to people and it was authentic for you. Figure out what's authentic to you. Like for me, coming in, and albeit obviously, which I've said before, it was a much different time, and because there weren't any voices. But I figured out that I was funny. I was a funny writer, not funny in person, unfortunately, but my writing is funny. And, beauty writing was deadly serious at the time. Like, this, it was like, this mascara will lengthen your lashes and possibly curl them, and you should probably get it because Maybelline is awesome.
Right.
Like, and it wasn't like, this mascara will make you want to get naked and roll around in it. Like, it wasn't, you know what I mean? Like this super dramatic, evocative, creative writing approach to beauty, like infused with pop culture and real and anecdotal. And I'm going to talk about this blush, but I'm going to write about how I wore this blush on this horrible date with this guy who performed spoken word for me at dinner at a Japanese restaurant with only 4 tables. And it's just like a different way to sort of approach the beauty conversation. So yeah, I think you should. I think the thing to do is be original.
Be original.
Mhm.
Another one is, what are some mistakes that you see millennials making in the workplace? Because I think they could use this. What are some things that you see going like, oh, sweetie, like,
oh, nobody does the work. And I know that's like the thing that old people say, like, but it's a cliche because it is so true. I see it at work. I see it from the emails I get. How do I get to where you are? So instead of asking me like, what my process was, or what you're asking me now, like what advice I would give, or what what insights I have into the industry. They just want to fast forward 20 years and get to where I am now.
Right.
Which is like, it's an insult, first of all. But that's not what seeking mentorship is. It's helping someone to develop your skills and give you some leadership. It's not asking for shortcuts. And I feel like a lot of millennials just want the shortcut. I was speaking with a 24-year-old the other day who works for a brand, and she was like, I feel like I've gone above and beyond in my job as an assistant, and I just really feel like I need a bonus and a raise, like, at this point. And I just really want to know, like, how to talk to my boss about, like, getting the money I deserve. I was like, you don't deserve any money. Like, what are you talking about? That what you have described is the expectation. You're supposed to show up for your job and exceed, the job description. Like, that's what you're supposed to do.
Right.
That's what's expected. What else?
Right. What else? Right. What else?
There are people who are assistants for 6 years, 7 years. Like, there were editorial assistants at magazines that woke up at 27 and they were like, oh, I should be a senior editor by now. It's like you work and you work and you work and you work and you absorb. And I think that what we did was really suck in every experience that we could, instead of worrying so much about skipping steps to get the title or skipping steps to get the raise. I didn't make money till I was in my 30s.
Wow. Same. I didn't make anything. I don't even know what it could be considered before then, but it's like, this is kind of what it is. So I'm glad that you shared that because I feel like it's so difficult to say because I think no matter what I say, people still think that there's a shortcut or they still think like, they think that you did your job and then you should get more because you did it and
No.
you come every day. So I have to know because you are the beauty queen. What I want to know high low. If I was going to splurge on one skincare item, what is the thing or brand that you're like, go ahead and spend the money? It's worth it.
Oh, am I gonna sound so bougie?
No.
Um,
Because
honestly,
because then I'm gonna ask for a low end. Like, what's that thing?
okay.
Like, yeah, we're gonna do high and low.
And most of my makeup is low end because what you do realize when you've been in beauty for a minute is that it's all made in the same factory. So, but there are things. I mean, skincare and face makeup, like foundations and concealers and um, powder. I feel like you spend the money on that. This is crazy, but like La Mer
I,
concealer
I knew you were gonna say that.
and La Mer foundations, they are just you will never look dewier. You will
Never.
never look younger and glowy and completely radiant and well rested. And there's a reason that those products are $4 million
Mm-hmm.
because you look like $4 million when you wear them.
Right.
It's really, really expensive, but their stuff really lasts a long time.
Okay.
Um, and
Well,
another trick
go
I
ahead.
have is buying expensive eye creams, but using them as moisturizer all over.
Really?
Hmm. Not all over your body, all over your
Just
face.
all over your face. Wow.
Yeah,
That's a
not
good hack.
just under eye. Because what it is just a basic moisturizer, really concentrated and intense.
Right. Right. And you
So
can maybe mix it. I know the lady who does my facials was saying like you can do that and then cut it with something just really light
yeah,
if you want. Yeah, like just use it and then mix it with something so it lasts longer, but she's like it's doing the same thing.
yeah, it's doing the same thing. It's just more intense. So that's something I've always done.
Okay. And then like low end beauty must have, under
Oh,
$5.
Maybelline Great. Yeah. Well, I don't know if it's under $5.
But it
But
but
obviously Maybelline Great Lash Mascara. Like you really don't need
really?
to spend money on a mascara. It's the best one. It's what's backstage at all the fashion shows. It's what all the editorial makeup artists have like on these fancy shoots. Honestly, pink and green, like that's it. It's the best. And
Okay.
not even the bells and whistles Maybelline mascara because they have a whole line, like volumizing, plumping, whatever. Just the basic like 1987 Great Lash will give you Diana Ross lashes.
Really?
Yeah. Also, I love the NYX makeup,
Oh
which
yeah,
is really
same.
cheap.
Yeah.
Um, they
I
have
think
these
it's
great
supposedly
like,
called NYX.
oh, is
You
it
know,
it? Is it NYX?
it is. Yeah. I think
Oh,
yeah.
it's
Yeah.
NYX.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, yeah, beauty
No,
queen.
I still call it NYX, but I think I worked with them and they were like, thank you for calling NYX. And you're like, oh, got it.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah. Hmm.
But they have these like matte velvety lipsticks, and I know like for black women, like most of us have two-tone lips. Mine is really, really prominent. Like my
Okay.
lips are two completely different colors. And my big problem is when I get a lipstick, it's never true. Like the pigment that's in the actual bullet is never
Right.
what shows up on my lips. And those lipsticks really, really do. The pigment is really intense. Also, I love a Neutrogena skin cleansing wipe in a pinch.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
Those
Sometimes I'm
are
too tired to take my makeup off before I get in bed, and I keep them on my nightstand, and I'll just quickly do a wipe and toss it in the trash across the room and go to sleep.
wow. Yeah. On the high end with those, I'm obsessed with the is it Lauren Napier wipes? Like those.
Yes.
And I talked to her on the phone the other day. Like, I just want to stand for you, girl. And she's a young black woman. I've never had a better wipe in my life.
Oh, those are so good. Yeah.
So they're too good. Okay, so we are going to get to two listener questions. And they're sometimes the questions are broad, but I'm gonna put these on you, Tia. She
Okay.
says, "Hi, my league. I'm writing you to get some advice and a few things off my chest for lack of words. I am a 29-year-old young woman and I feel like I'm stuck in a cycle. I have a great paying job. She put that in caps, not a career, but I am not happy. I did what
Mm-hmm.
everyone said, go to college, graduate, get employed, the quote unquote good life. Yet I don't feel fulfilled. I work every day, all day. I take care of my mom who lost her job 4 years ago due to the government crackdown. Then she got sick and has not returned to work since. I want more out of life, yet when I sit and try to think of what that more is, I have no clue. It's like I'm full of ambition, but easily discouraged by the negative responses of those who I'm surrounded by, family, friends, and significant other. It's like they don't realize how important that is. My leak. I
Mm.
want more out of life. I don't want to remain stagnant. I don't want to live check to check. I don't want to be unhappy. I guess my question is, how do you find your purpose? Where do you find your passion? I feel like I'm moving at such a slow rate for someone who wants the best out of life and will be 30 soon. Any advice?
Hmm. I think the first thing not to do is share your dreams with other people.
Mm,
Um, I never do that because I
okay.
I don't want to take in your response. And a lot of times people want to tell you that your dreams are not achievable.
They do because they're too afraid.
Exactly. And it's not them being mean or unsupportive, even though it ends up
Hmm.
being unsupportive. It's really just a lot of friends and family just want to keep you grounded. And if it's something that they were unable to do in their lives, or if it's something that scares them, they're going to try to discourage you from doing it. Like if you have a job, even if it's a quote unquote job and not a career, girl, at least you have a job. What are you doing? Like stay
Right.
there, collect your salary. Like why would you, leave that and risk failing? A lot of
Hmm.
people are scared to fail. I mean, everybody's scared to fail.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I think you keep it to yourself and quietly plan to run after that goal. And if you're not sure what that goal is, you just know that there's something out there you need to be doing that you're not doing. I'm a big
Hmm.
list maker. I did it when
Okay.
I was 18 years old, my freshman year at UVA. I was like, this is what I want before I'm 28. I don't know why I picked the age 28,
Hmm.
but I did. And I wrote it all down. Apartment in Brooklyn that I own, you know, career as a
Hmm.
novelist, beauty editor, working at magazines. I want to be married. I mean, I was 18. Um, and I wrote it all down and it was completely my intention to check everything off the list.
Yep.
And writing it all down it sends the message to your brain. It makes it real.
Hmm.
Not typing it, writing it down like with your hands,
Yep. I agree.
And honestly, like I'm not a the secret person. I'm not even particularly um spiritual, though I really wish I were. I feel like my life would make a lot more sense. But just on a practical level, you can't deny the power of writing something down. It's like
Hmm.
creating a magic spell.
Right.
So if you're not sure what your thing is, write down everything that you love, everything that
Right.
you think is cool, even if it's the weirdest thing ever. Write down
Hmm.
what your hobbies are, write down what turns you on, and then do some research into how to monetize those things.
Yeah.
And if you can't find any concrete evidence that you can monetize those things, seek out mentors who can maybe help you figure out how to do it. And I
I
think that's
agree.
the first step. Keep it to yourself and make a list and start
I
doing your
agree.
research.
Yes, I was going to say that she says, I want more out of life, but she never said what that meant, but it's like, I know
Yeah.
I don't want this. I don't want this. I don't want that. And so I think, like you said, the first step is to make a list of what does that more mean to you? And you don't
Yeah.
have to share it with the people around you, but you have to figure that out. And so for a long time, I would go, it's so crazy that I have it, like I use the time hopper, Facebook memories and that. Like I remember
Mhm.
going and looking at this house, um, this $600,000 house a couple years ago. And I remember just being dang, like I would go do stuff like that, like not even knowing how the hell I would even afford like that much, right? And
Right.
it seemed so out of like touch, but I kept doing it. I was constantly going and looking at homes, and I eventually bought my house almost 2 years ago, and my house cost more than
Yay.
that. And I remember thinking, like, just a few years ago, I didn't even think I could afford 600 grand for a house. And now I have a house that's is worth more than that and costs more than that. Like, it's just this thing of constantly putting yourself in the place that you want to be. It's like you've got to just keep doing it. And it's like, if you want to have a lifestyle that affords you to stay at nicer hotels, walk in the front door of every nice hotel until you're
Girl,
checking in. It's just like
it's so true.
and you have to do it because, like you said, it's like creating a magic spell. It convinces your mind that, like, I belong here, I deserve this, and I'm gonna sit here until y'all open the door. I'm gonna sit here until
Exactly.
I'm gonna keep coming until you let me in. And I just think it changes the way you work. It's like you're not working to similar to the young woman who's like, I think I deserve a raise. It's like I'm working for an elevated lifestyle. And once you
Yeah.
that, you're not looking for a little check. You're looking for like limitless living,
Yes.
So that's
So
kind of,
true.
yeah, my thought. And I don't know that you find your passion. I think that you sort of, when you feel that thing that gets you up, or it like gets you excited, you don't find that, but you honor that and you do that. So it's
And I
there.
also think that some of the things that excite people, they think can't be a job.
Yep, they do.
Do you know what I
They,
mean? And
mhm.
that's why I think the piece about seeking out people to help you, like people older than you, people who are doing something similar, or just just someone that you trust that's in a place that you vaguely think that this obsession might live within,
Mhm.
um, is really important because when I was little and I loved the magazines so much, and I was always drawn, the first thing I was drawn to were the makeup pages. I didn't realize that somebody was writing that stuff. I just thought it just
Right.
sort of dropped out of the sky.
Right. Right.
And sometimes you need to be introduced to I have a friend who spent her whole childhood merchandising her bathroom. Like, she wanted everything to be beautiful in there. She
Mhm.
wanted the products to like, she would worry about the skyline of the products. Like, she would want everything to be even, and all the labels to be facing outwards. What she didn't understand was that she was supposed to be decorating windows at Saks. She didn't understand that she was supposed to be doing the merchandising at Sephora. She didn't know that that was a job, being a merchandiser.
Right.
Um, and it took investigating to realize that that was actually a thing, and she could make her passion and a thing that came um, naturally to her into her life's work.
Yep. Do what comes naturally to you.
Yeah. In the
Um,
meantime, though, make your money. Like, I what I don't what makes does make me nervous is quitting a job with no backup. Even though I know that that's what a lot of people do.
mhm.
Um, uh, I feel like in this day and age, with the economy so weird, and I don't think there's any shame in keeping your quote unquote job, as long as it's not like emotionally debilitating to you, while you're doing this investigating, while you're doing this soul searching. Um, Unless you have a robust savings, then you can, quit and travel the world, or seek your bliss in that way. I do think that being able to pay your bills is kind of important.
Yeah, agreed.
That's the practical side of me.
Yes. And then I have another question, which I just am saying. She goes, you don't have to read this on the podcast, but I'm going to read it, but make some edits. But the long and short of it is that she said she had an artist manager reach out to her and ask for her contact info. And in exchange, he sent his contact info. Would you contact him first by phone, or should I wait on him? She was saying that she's super shy and gets really nervous. In the Instagram DM, he said, I want to see what you do, even though it's in my bio. I know he has been linked to working with, she says, some like a famous artist in the past. Am I wrong for texting first? I have some other thoughts about this, but what are your thoughts about this?
Wait, so she's like a singer, or
I don't know. I get the feeling that she never really said what she did. So she said she changed her Instagram handle from her blog name to her personal name. and she's been getting a lot more interaction. And I guess a manager reached out to her on Instagram, and he sent his info, and she's like, would you contact him first? Or, you know, and he's asking what he wants to see what she can do, even though it's in her bio, which I'm guessing that like maybe it's some sort of service like that she provides,
Mm.
if it's in her bio,
Oh.
like her Instagram bio. So she says, is she wrong for texting first? I'm curious for your thoughts on this, like what you think about stuff like this. Um, but I
Well,
have my own thoughts.
I don't know.
I
I
can,
kind of feel like if she did her research and um he really has worked with real clients and has a real profile and a real job, like a real career, a real business.
this is not,
Um, this is not that.
no, I'm just saying like, I'm just talking over you because I'm like people who really do that in the industry, that's not how they reach out to people on social media, I would think.
I mean, that's where I was going with that. Like, I
Hmm.
don't, if you're very established, what did he DM her?
He DM'd her, yes.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's not, no. Like, no model agent would do that. No real literary agent would do that.
Right.
No agent or man, I know more about agents than managers, but I
Hmm.
don't think that they DM.
I don't think so either. And I think it's a rapper. So I think that sometimes people think that's the approach. And I think the long and
Oh,
short, yeah. So she's like, I'm super shy and I'm really nervous. Am I wrong for texting first? I don't think it's a right or wrong thing. I think this is a situation where I'm glad you asked me, but it's like this is not a professional way to reach out to someone. And it's not that people don't do business over DM, but I would just think that someone would say, hey, I looked on your personal website and couldn't find your email address. Can I email you? You know what I mean? And
exactly,
then from
exactly.
there, everybody should have sort of like some sort of website or page for at which they can be contacted for doing business at this point. And if
Yes.
your only sort of like business is on Instagram, then I'm sorry, I just don't think it's a business. And I do think that somebody reaching out to you and saying, "Let me see what you can do," almost insinuates that like you want me to tap dance before you hire me, which is like you better get into these links, you better Google up this
That I
name and find
provided. Yes.
and I think it sets the stage of like you're setting yourself up for, and then you're like, he reached out to you, you exchanged the contact info, and now you're like, should I wait on him? It's like that's what he wants to do. That's the total mind fuck, right? It's
Yeah,
like,
it's a
let me make you
manipulation.
think I've worked with so and so. I've supposedly worked with one big artist. I'm gonna hit you up and sort of like make you feel weird and strange and insecure and be like, so what do you do? Make you wait and dangle so that you're desperate, like you're already starting off feeling desperate, and that's how you get played. So
Yeah.
I would just not even engage I would just say no.
No, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like people email me because they
Hmm.
find it on, they do, if they really are interested, they'll go to my website or, you know, being hit up on DMs is just, it's tacky.
Yes, I agree.
And I just wouldn't trust it. I wouldn't
No.
trust it, especially if it seems that she provided a link to
Yes.
something in her
Hmm.
bio. So
Right.
just go there,
Right. Right.
and figure out how to reach her.
what are we still talking about? So
Yeah.
that was the last of my questions, and that is the end of this interview. Tia, where can we find you everywhere on social and your books? Give us the rundown. This is the time.
This is the time. Okay, so my books are my two adult novels, which sounds like porn, and it's not. It's just grown up. Are
Hmm.
The Accidental Diva and The Perfect Find, and then I wrote two young adult novels called The It Chicks and 16 Candles, and
Okay.
then I wrote a book with Iman called The Beauty of Color. And on Instagram, I'm Shake Your Beauty, like booty, but no, beauty.
Hmm.
And Shake Your Beauty on Twitter too, and Tia Williams on Facebook.
Awesome.
And my website is tiawilliams.net. And Yeah, that's me.
Awesome.
I'm
Thank you.
around.
You're around. Thank you so much, Tia.